Go ahead, Andrew.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Craig, if you could put up the slides. Excellent. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the seventh of the Aliso Health Study CAG mini town hall series. Next slide, please. This is, as you know, even though I think there are a couple of new names, and we appreciate you being with us today. This is a weekly series. Notice a new time, and thank you all. And we'll get some feedback later on whether you guys like the later start, the 6 o'clock start. We can keep that if the community finds that beneficial. Each week we take a topic or two and we dissect the topic. What are the issues? What are the roadblocks? What do we need you to do to help us out? What should you be concerned about? Next slide, please. Oh, look at that. I made it. A typo made it through. So again, this is session 7. Tonight, we're going to be discussing the goals and priorities draft document as published by County Public Health. Quick review for those who may not be up to speed to the actual event of which we are working to learn about. It's been 5 years since the blowout, which was in October of 2015. The community's health was then and is now continues to be endangered by the facility. There's a lack of information transparency and truth. That's really the highlight of this series, is really illuminating and telling you the truth as to the process and the concerns regarding the health study and the ongoing and the again urgent now CAG actions and concerns. Okay, next slide. Just real quickly, as we do every go, this is our last vote regarding no confidence of the CAG members. We have not taken a vote in February, but the crux of this slide is we don't have any confidence based on the current path. Next slide, please. Part of that no confidence comes from this list. These are all the items that we have either been working with or initiated or have demanded get attention regarding the health study in order to provide a science-based, politically, lack of political influence study. And these are all the items, and we find them and we've covered them in this town hall series to be critically important, and none of them have ever really been addressed. Next slide, please. Just a real quick synopsis. If you somehow were living under a rock in another country or on another planet over the last 5 years, the SS-25 blowout lasted about 118 days. It's a blowout. It's an uncontrollable release of gas and material from a well. It's the largest methane and chemical exposure in US history. We don't say that lightly. That is, in the 200 plus year history of this country, nothing has ever been worse than this. It was 200 times greater in volume than the Deepwater Horizon, which was the oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico. It was an unprecedented combination and duration of polytoxins over a residential community, a very dense residential community, I should add. And we want to make sure everyone's aware this was not just a gas exposure. The plume contained liquids like toxic crude oil and solids like toxic heavy metals. It's very important for you to remember. Next slide, please. Covered in a previous session, I left this slide in for reference. If you want to know more information about any of the chemicals on screen, these are just some of the chemical soup. You can look at this, look at the underlying articles at your leisure. What I will say about this slide is we are still chasing the chemical list, as you all know. Next slide, and we'll really kind of get into the meat of today's session. So the goals and priorities document is the first in a couple of actions by public health in order to secure vendors, researchers to do the health study. It's supposed to be a semi-vague document that outlines the feedback provided to public health and the scientific oversight committee by the CAG, by you, the community, and by anyone else the SOC connected with in order to learn about this disaster and come up with the areas that they want to be included in the RFP, the request for proposal. We believe this is really the last opportunity for the public and the CAG on your behalf to have significant influence into this process. We believe once the goals and priorities is done, we will not see or be able to comment on the RFP, nor really assist or have influence in the selection of the researchers. That is why the CAG feels this is so critical, that the goals and priorities include a number of items, some of which we'll talk in generalities tonight, and we'll cover more again in the next week or so. So in summary, the CAG's position, as we have presented to them and the Scientific Oversight Committee back in November, is this is a portion of an email or a letter that was sent. And I want you to focus on the highlighted section. I'll read that out loud for everyone now. And that is, basically, we are saying this study must be patient-based study driven by a long-term evaluation and monitoring of a sufficient number or cohort of affected community members to evaluate the incidence of acute and chronic health hazard or disease associated with the proximity to Aliso Canyon's periodic excessive, the blowout, and chronic low level, that's every other day, exposure to petrochemicals in a manner that becomes the scientific gold standard and can be referenced by future generations. In a nutshell, that is what the CAG believes this study needs to be. Okay. Next slide, please. The CAG, since we lost our SOC liaison in Dr. Nordella, and I'm going to invite him to speak here in just a moment, the CAG is unaware of what discussion the Scientific Oversight Committee has had or the rationale behind the goals and priority document. We have zero knowledge, or how much of it was actually written by public health. And you see that asterisk, I'll come back to that in a moment. As we now have zero exposure, again, or transparency to the SOC's discussion about the future of our health study, again, DPH removed the only liaison we had and put a muzzle on the other, which was Dr. Sistrunk. So as you know, if you don't know, again, if you were on another planet recently, Dr. Christopher Sistrunk from City of Hope and Dr. Jeffrey Nordella, the latter of which was the unanimously selected SOC liaison, were booted from the Scientific Oversight Committee for failure to sign their SOC charter. And we've covered that in a previous session. And rather than really dwell on that now, I would invite you to view that session via the CAG's YouTube channel. And you can link to that from our website, which you can see at the bottom of the slide. Going back to how much was written by DPH, the only thing we do know, because we were told by Chris Vikulik herself in one of our meetings, was that she was going to write the goals and priorities document, excuse me. And Chris Vikulik is, by DPH's own words, a junior staffer, but in a position of manager. I believe she's a study manager. She had indicated to us that she was going to be drafting this document. So in the absence of any other communication with the SOC and how involved they actually were, there are an abundance of questions about the document. And I'm going to pause now. We're going to bring in Dr. Nordella here in just a moment. And after Dr. Nordella speaks, we're going to open up to an early Q&A really on the goals and priorities document. And we'll show a picture of the document for people to read already. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at this. It's on the DPH website. Any other questions regarding anything else study-wide, we'll cover later in our regular Q&A at the end. But if it's a specific question on the goals and priorities, we'll take those now. So now, Dr. Nordella, if you ready to go, I'd like to yield the floor to you, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Couple of things. After reading the document fairly deeply, there's a couple of things that stand out that you guys should be aware of. First of all, the document is incredibly overbroad. They are promising you everything. There's a huge problem with that. First of all, there is no commitment to a patient-centric study arm or leg or whatever you want to refer to it as within this. Second of all, there is an issue with $25 million. You cannot give you everything that you would like, of which they're proposing. Now, I will tell you, it is my opinion that there's a small group within the Department of Public Health that will go back, say that they've received your input and they received the SOC's input, and they will basically do what they want to do. And that's going to be, they'll write the RFP and that's what you will get. So if we're really thinking that this will be a patient-centric study, I don't see how they will do that with the amount of money they have. Second, for full disclosure, these ideas were all fairly early on discussed as a SOC member. So these are nothing new. It was, for full disclosure, John Boudreau from OEA had made the statement that to Dr. Simon that when are we going to tell the community we can't do this? And it was like, well, do what? So it was being set up, in my opinion, and this was agreed by Dr. Guadati, the gentleman from Canada, that, you know, we were going to, or you were going to as a community hear that they just could not perform. So I think those points are basically huge. And again, the last issue that really stood out to me is they talk about the expertise of the SOC. And if you look at the SOC members, there's a lot of people there that are very bright, and when they stay within their bowling lane, they're very good at what they do. But if you look at the parties that make this up, there is not one clinician on this panel any longer. So I'm not sure how they're going to support the issue of a patient-centric study. Now, they would probably argue it, well, we're going to turn it over to the researchers after the bid comes in, and we're going to tell them that that's what they want to do. But again, you go back with this list of things that they're promising you, and I just cannot see financially how they're going to make this stretch. You're going to need every dollar if you want to focus on a patient-centric study to do exactly that. So that would be my feedback to you, and more than happy to field any questions.
I see Assad, you have your hand raised. Go ahead and unmute and ask your question, either for the CAG or for Dr. Nordella.
Yes, hi, good evening, everybody. It's really follow up on what Dr. Nordella was saying. I read through the document several times, and it's really, there isn't much of context to offer, nor even a clear path of where we're going next. It's so broad, even from my perspective as an engineer, it's like, I can't see an objective, I can't see what we're doing, what's next. And it's definitely not addressing any of the concerns. This is a document probably I would have expected 4.5 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, but not at this late stage where we are ready to proceed. And I mean, I hope they will listen to our comments but I don't know how far we're gonna get. But I'm not happy with the first draft, so I'll leave it at that.
All right, thank you, Assad. Let's, I'm not sure the absolute best way to do this. Assad, if you can lower your hand for a minute. And let's see if we can sort of do a little survey here. If you have read the goals and priorities document, will you raise your, I want to make a comment hand, and I'll just count to see how many people have done that. So I've seen 2 so far. Julie's raising her real hand, so we'll go with that. Okay, and I have Debbie or Maureen, Ron, Alexandra, John
Jeff is
Tebow.
raising. Jeff is raising his real hand too.
Okay. Okay, so I don't have, I'm not looking at the gallery view here. Let me change my screen here. All right. So for anyone who has read the doc, so go ahead and lower your hands. Okay, let's go ahead and lower our hands. So, great. Brian, lower your hand. All right. So for anyone who's read the document, the question is this. When you came away from reading it, did you feel like this document was leading somebody to believe a clinically based study with, you know, a clinical physical mental health evaluation was going to occur? If you felt that way, raise your hand. And no, there are no hands raised. And I will say that does not surprise me. That is, I think, our unanimous feeling is this document could have and should have contained stronger language indicating that this community will not settle for anything less than a clinical evaluation of its residents and their physical and mental health issues. That is our, so that was I guess, unofficial and unstatistically invalid study as we possibly could do on a Zoom call. But that kind of proves our point. Okay? This document cannot be the final document. It just does not take into account what the CAG has heard from you all and the number of people we have spoken to and the multitudes of people who have been on these town halls. That document does not reflect what the overwhelming majority of people have said they want out of this study, period. And that just really can't be. Craig, I think we have somebody in the waiting room.
Andrew, can I make a comment real quick?
Absolutely. Go ahead, Dr. Nagel.
So again, I think, and maybe I was not clear, the document is not there really to get your input. I mean, think about it for a second. You're looking at a $25 million health study. So they're going to go to the community members and they're going to say, well, what would you like? I mean, you're all scientists, right? And they're just going to basically take, because it's a check off on a box, that we've consulted with the community. And here's what they want. Unfortunately, I apologize, we can't give you that. And they're going to move on their path. And if I'm wrong, I'll take you all out to dinner. But the issue is this is just an exercise. They cannot perform on this. And if you look at the again, being so overbroad, they're going to pick those. And then what are they also going to do? Think about this. You're going to fill out a survey. Are you going to know what your fellow neighbors think? Are you going to know what anybody thinks? So that survey, what does it really mean? This is what they did with the SOC members that were independent members. They surveyed them, took it behind closed doors, and then came back with the survey results without letting us know who thought what. So you are never going to find that out. And this is going to be on its way, unfortunately, and I just don't think it's going to evaluate your question. And I've taken your question to them and your statements to them numerous times. It needs to be a patient-centric study. Last point, you don't have the chemicals. And if you do not have the chemicals, how do I know as a doctor how Mrs. Smith is faring with her pulmonary disease, our cardiac disease, our renal disease? I have to study organ systems. And if I don't do that, I will never know really what the health status of you are. So, does this do that? I don't think so, but I guess we'll see. Thank you.
Sure. Sure. Brian, I see your hand up. Do you want to make a comment?
Yeah, I'd like to add a little bit to this. The document that we're talking about tonight, the goals and priorities. The word priorities is a very important word in this because it signals that there are priorities, that there is something that is expected to be done. And in this document, there is no specific direction. As Assad said, it is a very broad document. And because it's so broad, what DPH is saying is we've made it broad because we want the researchers to be able to do whatever they want to do. The problem is if they don't tell them what's needed to be done, then the researchers will not do that or may not do that. On top of that, and I'm looking at this from the standpoint of the researchers now. So I recognize that that what Dr. Nardella has just said is absolutely correct. That the input from the community is going to be ignored, for lack of better terms. But the researchers, in order for them to really understand what it is that they should be doing or would think they should be doing, they would have to have a solid understanding of what really happened. And this document in the area of background completely whitewashes any understanding of what really happened here. And I have done some redlining on this to address what I would expect it to say, and that can be made available later on. But it eliminates the understanding of just how serious some of these situations are and what actions were or weren't taken. So it's very important that the researchers get an understanding of what really happened, and this document does not do that. On top of that, there are areas in this document that there are definitions of at least 3 different concepts in here, which I dare anyone to understand. There is no way that you could understand what they are saying. So how do you respond in kind with comments if you don't even understand what the terms are? So that's just a brief overview of what I've seen in this document.
Thank you, Brian. And you started to allude to some further action. Craig, can you put the slides back up, please? Next, and then we'll go to the next slide, please. All right, so for those of you who have read the document, this will make much more sense than for those who haven't. And if you haven't, keep this in mind when you read it. We believe, really, on a high level, that there is language missing from this document, period. And Brian started to hit on that. Not only is language missing, but a page of definition so that the layman can understand what it is that they're reading is missing, and we find that that's an important a piece that needs to be remedied. And also the recital of what occurred and what we were exposed to that we actually know. It can't be whitewashed. It needs to be the truth. It needs to be the honest. I guess it's redundant, the honest truth. And the CAG will work on a version that we'll present to you all in the next couple of weeks. But let's hit on a couple of key points here. Language is missing. There is nothing about clinical exam. It says it may. I believe it says clinical items may be considered, something along those lines. But it's one line in a multi-page document. And as you all have indicated, no one who's read the document came away saying this document is focused on pushing the RFP and thus the researchers into a clinical evaluation position. That is not what we believe this document tells us. There's nothing about long-term. There's no real language about evaluation of chronic exposure. And as we've shared over the last 19 months, anyone who lives near this facility has a acute chronic exposure. Chronic before the event, the blowout, the acute during the blowout, and the chronic exposure since we know from SoCalGas directly that this facility leaks on average of twice a day, every day. There's no mention about radiation or particulate matter exposure and an evaluation of that exposure in any way. We've had a session in town hall regarding polonium and the radiation issue. But yet what we feel this critical document does not address that at all. So conversely, did the document use the word must at all? And as a matter of fact, it did once. And it indicated here, and you can see that on the second bullet, the study must include susceptible populations, including children, seniors, minorities, homeless, etc. We certainly don't agree with that. Excuse me, we don't disagree with that, excuse me. But what we do disagree with is the word must needs to occur more than once. And it really should lead the area of clinical examination. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, the CAG, we believe, the CAG and you, the public, need to continue to demand more accuracy in the way that public health represents the disaster. That goes to the recital in the beginning of the document. Continuing and demanding the operational use chemicals and the composition of the gas, liquids, and solids expelled from the well, i.e. the chemical substance list that we have been championing, trying to get a hold of for over a year now. Okay. Otherwise, the study will lack the adequate foundation and not be trusted by anyone in the community or viewed as scientifically credible, thereby wasting the $25 million. The goals and priorities document needs to contain language requiring the clinical evaluation of the physical and mental health of the people. That line has been stated by us, it must be hundreds of times. It's been stated by you, the community, what must be hundreds of times, and yet still ignored. We must focus on the people. Next slide, please. So we'll move into a general Q&A. So anyone want to raise their hand if they have any questions? And then we will get into upcoming meetings and kind of what can you guys do? Does anyone have a question? Go ahead and just, Julie, go ahead and unmute yourself and fire away.
Am I unmuted? You hear me? You can hear me?
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay, this may be a really dumb question, but is there anyone that is involved with the study from the Department of Health that was actually working for the Department of Public Health at the time of the methane explosion? Have they all been changed around? A chess game? I mean, there was a doctor on last week, I don't remember his name. He said he wasn't around at the time. So
that was Dr. Davis. Dr. Davis was not here during the event. Right. With the removal of Katie Butler, I'm actually at a loss for finding anyone of any significance who was here in late 2015 or 2016. And anybody else have input, or maybe I'm missing somebody?
Not somebody that was there since the very beginning. They've all been rotated out. You're right, Julie.
I think it's significant that these people are now in control of this study and they were never around, didn't really know what happened. It's riveting to me, you know, and All right, I have other questions, but I wanted to just.
By the way,
if
Julie.
anyone knew.
Julie, there's a good part of me that believes that rotation is intentional.
That's what I'm asking. Okay.
If that's your conjecture, being in the first row and seeing this transpire, I would agree with that it's very intentional.
Yeah.
Well, let me add is that I totally agree. And these are like second generation, you're on to the third generation then.
Yep.
And so who brought the point up that I can guarantee you the independent SOC members do not know the history of this blowout.
Okay.
They do not. I mean, they were asking questions that were way out there, tried to explain, but they are unaware of this. And the regulators, except for maybe two of them, were always silent. So this is how each of our 2 hours that we spent in our meetings went, just to let you know.
Thank you for the information. That was my gut feeling, that they were not around, nor do they really care, but they've got this study and they've got to make it look good. You know, and for me personally, obviously I want an accurate study, but for me, living in the community for so many years, I want the final study to prove that we cannot live next door to the gas company. There's more of us than there is of the gas company, but they have all the money.
Yeah, and Brian, I know you have your hand up. Let me just, if I may jump in quickly. You know, the other thing about the staff that I want to point out is, and this is not in any way disrespectful to the staff members themselves, but the chief, you know, community outreach person and Christina Vikulik, who again has been represented to us as, you know, a study manager and drafter of the document of the goals and priorities. These are young, fairly inexperienced, you know, people.
Yeah.
And again, this is not in any way knocking on them. This is who public health chose to put into those organizational positions.
Right.
And so I'll speak for myself. I know others on here will agree. I question the leadership choice. Why was that the choice that was made? Not again, not against either of the two of them specifically. The point is, why did you not feel that you needed to go get someone who had, you know, boots on the ground, study implementation experience? Why didn't you go bigger, as we've said before? Why didn't we go up to the NIH? Why? There just seemed to be other choices that could have been made, and this was the choice we got. And I have to tell you that for me, that hurts.
I just went on LinkedIn this afternoon, and Christina, our little research development manager, that's her official title, she had about a year's experience, full-time experience, before she came to Department of Public Health. That is not what a manager should, that's not the experience level that should be given a leadership role like a manager. Manager should be someone with vast experience and in charge of people.
Well, I think
Brian,
it should be
Brian,
pointed
you had
out.
your
I
hand
agree with Andrew and Patty.
Yeah,
that,
you know, what's being said right now is very true. No legitimate organization would ever put the most important disaster in US history in the hands of novices. No, nobody. There is no agency, no business, nothing that would ever do that if they were serious about what they were doing. So that said, you know, it's obvious what's happening here. I don't think anybody would disagree with that if they thought about it. And unfortunately, that comment came out in this discussion, and I have another comment, and when I get it back in my head, in my senior moments, I'll come back.
No problem, Brian. I don't see any other hands up. Julie, you did tease that you had some other questions.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm good.
Okay. So I'll do another call for any other questions from anyone else. I see we have some new, Jane and Helen joined a little late. Thank you both for being here. I don't know if any of the newer attendees, Alexandra, I don't know if anyone else wants to chime in. We're a pretty informal group. Oh, Alexandra, you took the bait. Go ahead.
Hi. And, forgive me if this question sounds kind of naive, but I am a part of the Save Porter Ranch organization with Patty and Jane, to name a few. And we were discussing the other day if it's possible at all for the CAG to create your own health study. I mean, I know that money is a huge factor, but is there any possible way, if like we were to get a bunch of Porter Ranch residents to submit their toxicology reports that they've, received over the years, just so we can have at least have like a group of people and be able to compare, what's in their system across the board at all?
That is a fantastic question. It's a tough question too. I think in our heart of hearts at this point, if somebody had $25 million, $50 million sitting around, the CAG would absolutely like to pivot and find it, to do this. The money has always been the singular issue for the community being able to really take control of this process. It's something I think certainly that deserves consideration for sure. And the CAG I think maybe would benefit from having a conversation with the Save Porter Ranch and gauge kind of the broader interest in. I mean, it's a huge endeavor in it for a community that I don't blame for wanting to turn the page and move on with life. I certainly don't. I mean, I have those thoughts on occasion too, but that's a huge undertaking. And if there's a push and if there's a drive and there are resources, I mean, I'll throw my own. I'll tell you, I'm game right now. But that's a big undertaking. I'm happy to have some more conversations, about that, in the coming couple of weeks.
Thank you.
Of course. Thanks for being here. All right, Craig, I don't see any other questions or hands up. So why don't we throw the slides up? So what's coming up? And this is important. So if you have a notepad, a Post-it, get your camera out and take a picture, however you can remember. Oops, Craig, I think we lost the
Yeah, stand by. So sorry. Bring it back. Here you go.
All right. Next Monday, there are two, we'll call them two, or one very long meeting that we need the public to be at. They are back-to-back Porter Ranch Neighborhood Council special meetings. The first meeting is a DPH presentation on the goals and priorities document. I would imagine it will look a lot like their presentation during I guess we'll call it loosely the CAG meeting last week, where they will show the document and just go through it really kind of line by line. And then I believe a comment period post that presentation. Then there will be, I'm sure, and Assad may comment or not, but there likely will be some official adjournment of meeting one and a startup of meeting two, which will be a CAG meeting for hopefully everyone will stay around, and the CAG will basically get to present some of the things that we've talked about tonight, and we will have developed, I'm sure, more specific language, more comments, more requests / demands that we believe the document needs to have, and we'll present those. Hopefully public health will stick around, but if not, we'll share those with the Porter Ranch Neighborhood Council and any of the stakeholders who are willing to give up a few hours next Monday night. So we really hope that everyone on here will join for those meetings. We hope that you will share the meeting information with everyone you know and bring the public out. Okay, as you can see, we have some public actions. Attend both meetings. Be honest and ask the tough questions during of DPH. That is your right to question and hold them accountable. Okay. During the CAG meeting, as we've through the Public Safety Committee of Porter Ranch Neighborhood Council already, we have worked on language for a no confidence vote for the Porter Ranch Neighborhood Council to take, as well as a letter supporting the CAG. During the CAG meeting, if you feel that the Porter Ranch Neighborhood Council should pass a motion of no confidence or submit a letter of no confidence, as well as a letter enumerating their support of the CAG, you should as a stakeholder make those feelings known. And we hope that the Porter Ranch Neighborhood Council will consider those motions at their April 14th general meeting. For information on how to get into the PRNC special meeting, please visit prnc.org. Again, both meetings are officially Porter Ranch Neighborhood Council meetings. The CAG will just be presenting at one of them. Next slide, please. Oh, Brian Allen, I see your hand is up, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, just because I'm not too senior, I did remember what I wanted to say. The discussion was entertained here just a little bit on the SOC and what the SOC knew, how involved they were. And I wanted to point out, because I think it's important that everybody understands that there is no member of the SOC other than Nordella that couldn't have understood everything that happened as a background in history if they had just taken the time to go to our website, the CAG's website, and read the timeline. The timeline is very explicit as to what happened when the entire time from 2015 right up to present. And I think if the SOC was doing their job, and I don't know whether any of them did or didn't, maybe all of them did, I don't know. But based on what is written in this document, the goals and priorities, it does not look like anybody read that timeline or understood that timeline, because it is very clear. Some of the things that are not in this background should have been there and obviously would have directed them in a different direction of desire to have things accomplished if they had just read that timeline. So I just wanted to point that out.
And someone with Virgo rising wrote it.
Mad props to Patty. That is, I dare to say 99% Patty's hard work. It's quite a deal. So we always encourage everybody and to pass on this information to your friends, family, your neighbors. Please go to alisohealthstudycag.org. Yeah. There is so much more information there, quite honestly, than you will find at the DPH site for the study, including all of our town halls, our letters to elected officials requesting action. You name it, it is on our site. It is a ever-growing resource for the community to use, and we encourage everyone to visit often.
Yeah.
Greg, if you could throw the slides back up, please. Oh, Helen Atai, I see your hand up. Go ahead, Helen.
Hi, everybody. I didn't want to disappoint you, not ask question. I know you're all waiting for me always say something. Anyways, I was wondering how much communication went on or is going on between CAG and SOC, how accessible SOC is to CAG. What's the relationship between these two groups?
Helen, the chair you're sitting on right now has had as much communication with the SOC as the CAG.
Wow.
We have no communication.
So how are they gonna do any health study if they're not talking to you guys who are representing the community with the knowledge?
Well,
I hate to interrupt, Andrew.
Go ahead, Brian.
I hate to interrupt, but I want to be honest about this. DPH has precluded us from having communication with the SOC. It's not that we wouldn't, we would. As long as Dr. Nordella was there, we had some. But we are not allowed to communicate with the SOC. And I don't care what they tell you, and I don't care what you hear in the neighborhood council updates that you may attend. There is no way that we are allowed to communicate with the SOC.
I
And they kept-
understand that. And I appreciate it. That's why I brought it up, because I think this should be something has to come up, on this meeting that's coming up. I think this is very important, because if SOC is going to do the study and is not talking to anybody but health department, that's just useless.
It's controlling. And from
Yeah.
meeting number 3 of the SOC, it has been in private. We don't even have notes from this meeting. There's no recording. What Dr. Nadella said, there's not any note taking or anything like that.
May I ask what's the logic behind it that Department of Health is telling you guys?
Your guess is as good as ours.
I would argue there hasn't been logic in this health study for 19 months.
Yeah, you know what I really, really, really like to see, even from, after the third CAG meeting, I wish we could just tell the Department of Health, I mean, I don't have the power, you guys do, Department of Health, that the community is asking, because they have been asking all these questions and you're never answering the questions. We just want to have a meeting only for you guys to come answer the questions. And if you don't, we're just going to walk away from this meeting, because that's all we want. We want answer to our questions that we have been asking, actually for last 5 years maybe, but since the CAG has been in place for like 18 months. And I just want them to somehow hold them responsible to come and answer, not a town hall, not a 2-minute period for public to speak, not just for them to come and answer the question the community has been asking them for last 5 years, or at least you can say for last 18 months the CAG has been in place. Because there are so many questions we have asked, they have never ever answered any of them.
Did that tell you something?
Can I be blatantly honest here?
Sure.
The fact is, Helen, your idea is very good, but it's 5 years after the blowout and we are losing community interest. And unfortunately, that is a problem. This meeting, if we could get half the people that Dr. Nordella has had in his meetings on these town halls, we would have a much better opportunity to direct this in favor of the community. But the community has to engage. They must get behind whatever they want done. They need to reach out to us and stay involved, stay engaged with us so that we can make these things happen. The ideas that are presented here from the community that does attend, we are very interested in. Andrew is right. We will meet with Food and Water. We will meet with anyone who has an idea of what can be done or what they'd like to be done, and we will entertain those ideas. But without the community engaging with us, our hands are a little bit tied.
I know, Brian, I've been involved and I feel the frustration, because that's been one of my main frustration. But one of the reasons that community is not getting involved, and even some of us who've been too involved are walking away, is that we never get any answer. We tell ourselves, what's the point? It's been 5 years of my life. I have put so much time, energy, money into these things, gone Sacramento here and there. But what have we accomplished? Not as much as we like, or not as much as we deserve. And that's what people are walking away. They said, but this is just waste of time. Even my own family is telling me, and instead of wasting so much time on this Aliso, just concentrate on us moving away from here.
But
I mean, this is honest. These are honest. I'm being honest with you guys. That's
absolutely
really what's going on.
But Helen, if the community walks away, they do have potentially something to lose, because if no study is done, there will be no help in the future. If a solid study is done, it could very well help them in the future. So they are hurting themselves by not sticking with it.
And if there is a bad study being done, it's even harming the community.
Mhm.
It's better than no study being done. A bad study and not,
That I've always
you know,
agreed with Helen, that a bad study is worse than no study at all. And
yeah,
the path that they are currently on, I'm sorry if I'm speaking over you. Am I speaking over you, Helen?
no, go ahead.
If the path that they're on is not the study that I know in my heart that you and Deirdre and all the people that were together talking to public health 5 years ago, it's the path that they're on. It's not the study we wanted it to be. And that's the only reason we got together and did this, was to see if we could influence that. And DPH has not only demonstrated that they don't answer questions, but when we do tell them the direction and the path that this thing should go and offer them paths to confidence in the community, they have outright refused to follow them. And I think the only way that we're ever going to do anything more, Helen, is that they work at the behest and the pleasure of the Board of Supervisors. And
Yeah.
unless they're uncomfortable about things, or the community is outraged and lets them know in the voting box, they're going to keep going down a path. I mean, it's not out of ignorance. It's not out of incompetence that they're making these choices. They're very intentional. These are smart people.
Yeah, their path is predetermined. And I think that you know, you have to look at the pattern and practice over 5.5 years of what they've done. They are on their own path. This document that you're discussing today is part of that. It's overbroad and it's going to promise you the world, and they'll get it behind closed doors and they're going to go on their path. The biggest point to bring up is that, as Brian was talking about, was the community. Yes, you are tired. And yes, there was just a lot of momentum initially. And it's a shame, but that's exactly where they want you. They want you tired. They want you few in numbers, because then you can't go back and threaten a position at Barter's office to get her out of office. So the fewer of you, the better. So until the community fires up and comes out in massives, you are the jury. You are public opinion. You are the jury of public opinion, and they will listen to that. And it's unfortunate that you have to do that to get them to do the right thing. But that's what the corrupt regulators are about. And that's why I made the comment that they have aided and abetted the criminal, which is the gas company that has dumped this into your backyards, into your lungs, into your bodies, and they have covered up and covered up and covered up. There is a plethora of evidence of that. They have absolutely not done the right thing for you. And to me, it should be litigated.
Well, I hope we can get some kind of, I feel like we need to go big and reach out to all news agency and just expose them again. I know we have done this so many times, but when Mr. Boland is telling me you need to be polite to Department of Health, be respectful, that's really insulting, because I feel like they have insulted us. They have ruined our lives. I mean, I am more mad at them. Everybody knows, people that know me, they know. I have more hate feeling toward Department of Health than gas company. Gas company is a business. They want to make money. That's what they do. But Department of Health, what's it there for? And I feel I have been trying to reach some kind of these news agencies. I'm hoping we can get somebody's attention, even celebrities, anybody like that. I mean, we need to go big like that, and then communities, we get the community's attention also. Communities exhausted. Communities doesn't have any hope. Communities been, have people who have been involved from day one, they know they have been there. But if they see any hope, if they see any array of something new happening, some of them will come back, but nothing new is happening. We are just repeating from.
There is some new.
What is new?
Some good points. One of them is that we are recognizing in these meetings that we have had a visitor from the CPUC.
Mhm.
That's a good sign. Where it goes, what it does, we don't know, but it's a good sign. And this meeting, we have representation from John Lee's office. And thank you, Ron, for being here. And as we have people that start to look at these meetings, that is a good sign. So while it's a very small sign and maybe meaningless at the moment, it is at least a sign. So I would say we need to maintain the belief that there is hope, because we're not backing down. The CAG is not backing down. I assure you of that. And we need the community to not back down either and join us in this fight.
See, the only worry that I have, a concern I have, I'm sorry if I'm taking too much time. If I am, let me know. I just stop here. Is it okay to go on?
Go ahead, but I
Go
think Ron wanted to say something, and then Julie as well. So go ahead, wrap it up, Helen, or do you want to wait for Ron's response first?
The only thing that really worries me, concerns me, is that I feel like some people are going to get offended by what I'm saying. I honestly feel like they are using CAG as a tool to get to what they want, just a check mark on their list and say, we have reached out to community, which is not really working out that way. And it's just to their satisfaction, because they're not even listening to you guys. They're not respecting you guys. They're not even going what you're suggesting. But they keep going. They keep going still. They keep acting like, oh, we're in communication with CAG, and CAG is representing the whole community, over 30-some thousand people, which is not true. To be honest, I don't know. There should be a better way. They should, and I feel bad for you guys. So I respect everybody who's been, working so hard, volunteering so much time. It's nothing against you guys at all. It's just, I just hate them.
Stand by. There will be
Helen,
changes.
yeah, everything that you are feeling, we can tell you the CAG is feeling. And while I would admit it hasn't yielded very much progress, the CAG has been swinging, if you will, the boxing euphemism. We've been swinging on behalf of the community, and we've been swinging for 19 months. It started about 5 minutes after the first meeting, the very first meeting. And we'll continue to do so, because our feeling is, if we weren't here fighting and yelling and screaming, then the process maybe would have steamrolled everybody 8 months ago or 10 months ago. But we have a duty, some of us an elected duty, to be your advocate, your strong advocate. And some may think we have way overstepped our bounds as an advisory group. Who knows? I mean, I've seen meetings of other advisory groups. They're very tame. That's not this group. This group is educated, well-spoken, passionate, and unrelenting in our protection of you, our community members. And we will go down swinging as hard as it takes, no matter how successful or not we are. That's what this group is committed to do.
Helen,
And I appreciate all of you.
thank you, Helen. The lack of progress in the direction that I know that you would say is a good thing is 100% on the doorstep of DPH, because we've made it more than abundantly clear. Ron had something to say, I think, and then Julie, you've been really patient. Is that okay? Go ahead, Ron.
Well, just good evening. Thanks for having me. I don't really have a lot to say. I just came to listen. I was that Council District 12 staff member, on October 23rd, I think 2015, that was, prior to that blowout. It was one of my accountabilities, and we got, 2 calls a year because somebody's bill was, $20 versus 10. So then we know how it changed all of our lives forever going forward. So just, I am here representing John. Although the entire CAG may not be aware, we've been in communication with Brian and with Jeff and with Andrew for quite a while, and made some We just wrote a motion resolution that mirrors the one that you folks wrote. And we are, because we've been given an indication that county council is going to make an imminent announcement, we've agreed to hold off on that. But I think, if I'm, Andrew, you guys have seen a copy of that motion, yes or no?
I have not. I only know the
Okay,
motion. I only know the motion I wrote sent to you.
Yeah, the one you said, well, it's essentially the same thing, Andrew. With a
Okay.
little, with a little bit more kind of Hemingway-esque stuff in there that, but that's just my ego kicking in. But
All right.
so we are on the same page there. And again, we've been given kind of assurances from the county that they're going to make an announcement, it's forthcoming, very soon, that may make that all a moot point. So that sounds like a good thing to me. And if it doesn't, then we just move forward and pursue, the chemicals and all the other stuff you guys asked for with leveraging whatever subpoena power we have. As most of you know, this really is a county state issue. We don't have a lot of jurisdiction, but we can bring to bear whatever influence we have, and we will. And then the commitment we made to Andrew and Brian and Jeff early on was that when this thing gets resolved, however, this $25 million, the health study, to whatever degree it's insufficient or not, we will augment, with through our own funds, like an expanded fence line monitoring system. So at our own expense, we'll figure out a way to try to fill some of the gaps that are evident through, the shortcomings of the health study and some of the mitigations that they've suggested. So I'm just really kind of here to listen, and we're all very busy. I know you guys are too. So I'll attend these whenever I can, and we're all in this together. Vast majority of our Council District 12 staff live here. I live over the hill in the Fairfax district, so I'm not going to lie to you, I don't live in CD 12, but my heart's here. So, if you guys have any questions, anything at all, you can always reach out to me.
Any sense of timing on when county council might have this intimate thing that you're referring to?
Yeah, I got the sense, Andrew, that it's within like 2 to 3 weeks. So to me, that's imminent, especially given how sloth-like bureaucracies move. So it sounds like something's, and what I was told is it may make that motion unnecessary, which sounds good to me. So, but you guys have all been at the effect of, proclamations like that before. So we'll see how it plays out. If not, we'll move forward in terms of getting that before the council.
Thank you,
All right.
Ron.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. And we appreciate the tip. I guess you may or may not be surprised that public health has not shared any of this with us. So
Yeah. It may not even be public health. I think it's county council. It may be independent, but yeah.
So, all right. Well, we appreciate it. And if you have, you got some downtime, you can check out all the other mini town halls on our YouTube channel. They're about an hour each, unless we let Helen go, then they're about an hour and a half, maybe. Just or maybe Julie. So, but we thank you for being here. And Julie, well, let's pass back to you. I'd like to try
Thank
to
you.
wrap this up in the next few minutes.
I'm going to try. The longer I wait, the more questions I have. I didn't even know about what Ron was referring to, the county council making an announcement. I don't know what the announcement is. Can you give me a little clue? What is it? Ron, are you there? Yeah, you're there.
Was it me?
Okay, yeah.
I'm
Ron,
back.
yeah. Did you hear the
was directed
question?
at Ron.
No, I didn't hear anything. Everybody froze. Sorry, Julie.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Your announcement that the county council is going to make an announcement in a few weeks. I don't know what the county council is making an announcement on. Can you give me a little background information?
You know what? I would imagine you guys are in communication with Barger's office, or maybe not. I don't know, but they would be. I don't want to speak for them, Julie. I was just told through a kind of a 6 degrees of separation staffer that it may be unnecessary. So I don't want to make anything up, but I just know that if it turns out to be a a mirage, Julie, then we'll just move forward with our motion and submit it, and asking our, our city attorney to move forward. So.
I don't know what the motion is. I'm sorry, I haven't.
Julie,
Julie,
the issue is the chemical list.
Yeah, thank you.
That's the issue. And
Yeah.
nobody knows for sure what's coming forward, but we speculate that it may be with regards to the chemical list.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, thank you, Brian.
I think if you recall, I had asked the question, am I still on? You can hear me?
Go ahead, Julie. Go ahead, Julie.
I'd asked the question that who had the ability to get the chemical list when we were at the meeting last week, whenever it was. And was it, I think it's Davis is his name. He said, oh, well, he didn't think we were saying who's responsible, who can subpoena it. And he kept saying, no, I don't think I can do it.
That was Dr. Muntu Davis.
Yeah.
Who responded to you. And this is, I'm not to beleaguer this too much since something sounds like it's imminent, but his response was that DPH independently does not have subpoena power, but they are a function of the county, and we know the county does, and we know DPH has authority under health codes to be able to pierce certain important veils like proprietary, or trade secret issues. From our perspective, this is all frankly BS. If DPH wanted the county to act, then Dr. Ferrer would pick up the phone and say, Catherine, we need this to get done. And it would get done because it's a public health emergency. That's our belief. Anything less than that occurring to us, the CAG, is that they are choosing not to go down this road. So I guess we will see what gets announced here in the next couple of weeks. I fear, and I don't want to be a pessimist, but more of a realist, that unless it is the complete list of gases and liquids and solids that we were all exposed to, then this is maybe a very partial win, and the fight will still remain. That until we get all the information, I think Dr. Nordella would say this, until we get all the information, you still don't know where to look.
Yeah.
You want the truth. There's a gaping hole here that
Can
our
I ask
elected
the last
could
part of my
win
question?
hugely on. Sorry, Julie, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, because I know that it's difficult to really get the community involved again. It's difficult. People are so tired and worn out and kind of want to crawl back into their little individual holes. But I don't know who mentioned it before, Food and Water Watch. They were really good early on getting people all involved. Have you ever invited them to any of the CAG meetings? I think her name is Nagy, is her last name?
Yeah, sure.
Would that be good to get her involved? Pardon me?
Her name is Alexandra.
Yeah. Because she can get the word out to a lot of people. I don't know how you're doing that.
Yeah, I guess I'll just take the answer here, and because I was going to try to avoid this and make someone else have to give a poopy answer, but I guess it'll be me. A number of us are in communication with Alex, and we have been over the course of this. I will take responsibility. I'm usually the chief notifier of these of town halls. I actually haven't specifically reached out to Alex in a number of weeks. I know that there was a lot. She's been very busy as well, but that's an avenue. We are. I think it's a fair comment to say the CAG has spent a lot of time working very hard with DPH, trying to resolve the issues and to make progress at the detriment of doing parallel action in the event that the work with DPH would be unsuccessful. I think we really hoped and believed that we could make a real difference. I think I think maybe Brian and Craig and Patty, I think, would agree with that. Because of that, we're a bit behind the 8 ball, and the town halls are a great example. We talked about doing this a year ago, maybe more. And we just felt we would just keep pushing with DPH and keep pushing and keep pushing. And so we didn't do that. And so now we're doing it. We're 7 in, we're 7 weeks in.
Yeah.
But we really wish we did this a year ago, because maybe there'd be more people still interested, or some people with a little bit of hope and whatnot.
It's a good point though, Julie, because again, in our recent Save Porter Ranch meeting, we hadn't had the meetings in a little bit because we've all, just been busy with different things, but that's definitely on the list of what we hope to discuss in the coming weeks, is just how do we get more media attention back on, like specifically the health study, because I know a lot of the attention that's been out there so far has been, of course, to shut down Aliso Canyon, which of course is going to continue to be the messaging. But that is something that we discussed the other day, is how do we get more noise, make more noise specifically around the need for this health study. So it's coming for sure.
And the planets just don't align here naturally, which is really frustrating. For instance, and it's posted here, the CPUC is meeting tomorrow. Thank you, Patty, for putting that in there. And it's a discussion about the feasibility and the necessity of Aliso Canyon.
Oh.
And what are they not discussing? The health and safety of the community adjacent to it. They are not discussing where is our Department of Public Health and submitting their opinion about the health and safety of the community around it. You know what they are talking about? Rates, reliability. Someone who we all respect, Isam, wrote a brilliant letter to them and just clobbered them for completely ignoring health. And the CPUC does not have a health department. Who did they look to for an opinion about the safety? Public health. They don't make a decision. They look to the sister agency of public health to let them know this facility is dangerous to the community surrounding it. You should look for alternatives. Where is that voice? Where's public health on this? They're completely silent, and that is totally unacceptable.
And they've been silent for 5 years.
Completely.
So those of us, who've been involved for the long haul, we had meetings long before there was a CAG, long before there was a health study. Helen's there, Patty's there, Craig and I have been there. We've been down to downtown, sitting across from these guys, saying, look, we know you can't say for sure that this place is dangerous, but you sure as heck can walk out there and say that you think there's something here and it needs to be looked at. And they've refused it every single step of the way. This is not a new phenomenon. This has been a 5-year phenomenon of denying that anything's really here.
And I think the LA County has not, they should be a party to this proceeding. And I don't remember if they are. I thought they might have been, and then they sort of dropped out of one of these proceedings. And it might be this one. Why aren't they involved? This is in the county of LA.
So there's a lot of factors at work here, Helen. And the one I will say with a clear conscience that 100% of the reason why we haven't moved forward and better and faster and bigger and more accurate about this health study is 100% in the lap of public health and the direction that they're getting from the county's board of supervisors, without hesitation. Look, I've been doing corporate stuff for 25 years. There was clarity to our message. There were deadlines that we tried to establish. They refused to come to the party.
And with all that positivity, Craig, can you throw up the slides, please? And we'll wrap this up. So again, a reminder, next Monday, 2 PRNC meetings, very important. Following that, okay, so there's the slide on the PRNC meetings. Next slide, please. The week after, we are going to tackle very specifically the changes required in the goals and priorities document. be back here at 6 o'clock, Monday the 12th. It'll be our response. We'll have at that point 4 days to get your comments in.
Mhm.
Okay. And we're going to give you, the community, the best ways that we think for you to respond to the goals and priorities. So let's go next slide, last slide. And this is really critical. So what can you do? We actually ask that you hold off on submitting your response to the goals and priorities at this time. If you are willing to take feedback from the CAG, then we are going to work over the next week to 10 days in developing our response and what kind of language we think must be included, and how can you, the community, provide that feedback. And I'll give you a hint, it's not doing an online survey. It's going to be to email them.
Yes.
And we'll provide hopefully some resources for you to attach to those emails, or language you can cut and paste, whatever is easy. But we need the community feedback, and we need it to be very firm, as we indicated, that anything short of a clinical study evaluating the physical and mental illness and disease, it will be unacceptable to this community. So next week, April 5th, we have PRNC meeting starting at 6:15, followed by the CAG meeting for PRNC at 7:45, and then back on April 12th, 6 p.m. on kind of what you do. You'll have at that point, 3 or 4 days to submit your comments. And that's our short-term calendar. So if there are any other questions, we can take those now. Otherwise, we've been going for 1 hour and 20. I'd like to wrap up, and we bid everyone a good evening. So I don't see any other hands raised. Oh, I think I see Assad's legitimate real hand.
Right. It's a very quick question. So are you intending as a whole CAG group to submit a document as the comments for this draft, or are you going to do it individually?
The answer is yes and yes.
Yes, both.
The CAG will have to provide an official response. We'll do like what we always do. We'll draft language. The CAG will vote. The undersigned, anyone who wants to support will submit it. But you should be darn sure we will all submit our feelings on our own as well.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay.
Assad, do you think PRNC would consider their own statement? Do you think that would be a possibility? I know you can't answer for them, but just curious what your thoughts are.
I mean, I think we should bring it up. I can ask the question when I have the board floor, usually when I have my 2 minutes that I can make my general comments. I can ask, and see, and ask it really in 2 ways. One way, as a stakeholder, can I make the comment? Because, I can make it on behalf of my family, or is that not allowed? And the other one is if the PRNC is going to, because time is of the essence. It's April 14 around the time. So
you'll only have 2 days. So you guys will have to have been able to really mature a set of comments to vote on the 14th to quickly get them
exactly
by the 16th.
Yeah, at this time there is a lot of, like I said earlier, there is a lot of questions, there is no answers. They throw big words like resiliency and all that, and it's like these are all big words, with no guidelines, with nothing. The mayor's resiliency document alone is like, we have about 375 pages. So what is health study going to do? You know what I mean? So, but I'll bring it up in my own time as a question to the board and see what they say.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. With that, I want to thank everyone thank Ron. Thank you for being here. Helen, Jane, Alexandra, welcome. Debbie, Julie, you guys are regulars. Assad, you're pretty much a regular. Thank you all. And we'll see you
Monday.
next PRNC meetings.
Yeah.
See everybody.
Have a good night, everybody.
All right. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Uh, Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye-bye. Good night.